Let's add some style to this page, shall we? We shall then. All right, let's start by doing something about this white background. When it comes to changing the background for your entire page, we will want to use the body as the selector. And the reason for that, if you recall, is the body is the visible portion of our web page. It contains all these elements that we've added so far that you see previewed here in this page. Now, when it comes to adding a background color, we will use the background color property in our declaration, background color, colon, and then for the value, we can put in a couple of different values, a couple of different possibilities for that. One way is to add the color name. And you've already seen an example of that when we change the font color from black to green, or was it blue? Well, whatever, I can't remember right now. But we changed the font color. We specified blue or green. Same thing with other colors. We have other possibilities, and one resource I like to use is w3schools.com because it shows me the color name, the hex value, and then a preview of that color. So I'll do aquamarine. Now at this point, this is aquamarine right here. Maybe you don't like aquamarine, which is okay. This is your chance to put in your own color. You do have a lot of choices here, so find your favorite color and use that instead. So you don't have to use aquamarine. I will go ahead and save this, and this would be a good time to check to see that everything is working. If you refresh your page and your background color changed from white to whatever you chose for the background color, then you know everything's working correctly. If not, then you might have to go back to the previous video or so and see where you went wrong. Now, aquamarine, that's one way to add the color name. I could have also used this hex value. I could have typed in over here, instead of aquamarine, I could have put in the hashtag 7FFFD4. Now, I don't know about you, but there is no way I'm going to remember that. It's a lot easier to remember a color name versus a series of letters and numbers for a color. And that's why I'm going to go with that. Now, of course, if you're a designer or if you just like other possibilities besides what's listed here, you can always mix your own color and put in the hex value for that. Or you could also do the RGB. So we'll do both examples. Let's change the color for the header section, for example. We added a header section right here. And this header section covers this first paragraph all the way to the last part of this navigation section. We're going to add a background color to that that's different than this body background color. To do that, we'll add the header selector, opening, closing curly brackets, background dash color, and this time let's try using a hex value. Again, you could choose the hex value from this list, or here's a nifty little tool, a color wheel provided to us by Adobe. Let me grab, or it looks like I already did. I grabbed that hex value for aquamarine 7FFFD4, put it here, and then I chose complementary so I could see the colors that are complementary to aquamarine. And I found that I like this one right here. And it shows me the RGB and hex values for this particular shade. So I will do that. I will do a # or hashtag FF987F semicolon. Save that. So again, just like aquamarine, you can choose your own color. You don't have to go with mine, because you're probably thinking, ooh, what's up with this dude, right? With my choices in color. Well, I like to be shocking, so there you go. There is my FF987F background for my header section. And we also added a footer section, and I want to go ahead and be consistent. So I will make my footer also have the background color. And we can save space or lines of code by applying this particular declaration to more than one selector. If you're going to use more than one selector, then it's just a matter of using a comma and then indicating the other selector. So you can have 2 or more selectors that will have the same declarations. In this example, we have header and footer that will have the same background color. Save that, refresh, and bam, looking good, right? We're adding some style. Okay, so this would be a good time to kind of pause and add some notes to our HTML document so you can refer to this later on. Let's start with saying something about this link element. We'll add a comment. Adding an HTML comment, the opening delimiter would be a $, exclamation point, 2 dashes, and the closing delimiter would be 2 dashes and a greater than sign. Anything in between will be a comment. We'll say below is the code for linking a style sheet. I should say linking an external style sheet to an HTML file. It should be in the head section. This is the head section right here. Next, let's say something about this embedded or internal style sheet. We'll add a comment right above that. I'll add in my opening and closing delimiters for the HTML comment, and we'll say below is an example of embedded or internal CSS. It should be in the head section. Now here's a new concept for you. We'll add notes to the CSS portion of this HTML file. And adding comments is also possible in CSS, except we have to use a different opening and closing delimiter. So that's something you want to pay attention to, is if you want to add comments, make sure you understand the correct opening and closing delimiters. When it comes to CSS comments, the opening delimiter is a / and an asterisk, and then to close that is an asterisk and a /. Anything in between then will be a comment. For this one, we'll say H1 is the selector. It is telling the web browser to apply the declarations below to all H1s in this page. And I'm saying in this page because this is an embedded style sheet. It's only going to apply to this page. The declarations would be each one of these: font size 64px, color red, and so on. We'll say something about that. Add another comment next to font size 64px. We'll say this is one declaration. Separate it from other declarations using a semicolon. If you forget to add a semicolon, that could really mess up your page. So make sure you don't forget. Get in the habit of adding a semicolon every time you finish putting in a declaration. Technically, this last declaration doesn't even need a semicolon because we're not separating it from anything else, but it's a good habit to go ahead and always put a semicolon. We'll add one more comment below this H1 rule, and I'll change it up a little. I will make it so that it spans more than one line. Same thing though, you could use the opening delimiter of a forward slash and asterisk, and then a closing delimiter of an asterisk and a forward slash, and anything in between will be a comment. It will not be visible or apply to your HTML. It's not going to be, or it's not going to affect anything. We'll say, do not forget to close all declarations inside curly brackets. That's another common mistake that students make as they're starting off with CSS. Sometimes they forget to put in a closing curly bracket and they start a new CSS rule without that, and that could really mess up your page also. So make sure to get in the habit of, after you add a selector, go ahead and do the opening and closing curly brackets so you don't forget. Okay, next, a selector and one or more declarations make up a CSS rule. This whole thing right here, from H1 to the closing curly bracket, is a CSS rule. And finally, embedded CSS is better than inline CSS, but is still not ideal because it is page specific. Okay, so that covers everything that we've talked about so far. For the next video, we'll do two more types of selectors. To recap, we've already seen an element selector, body, header, footer. Now we're going to do a class selector, an ID selector, and then I don't have a slide for it, but we will also do the all selector.